If you wish to, yes, please. Otherwise, we'll go back to Karnataka. Please go ahead.
Well, I think it is incumbent for you and your viewers to realize that we hold the court in the highest esteem, and it is our responsibility to respond to the court, to address the concerns which they have raised, implement the directions which they have given. But the appropriate fora to do that is on the other side of the vacation on the 10th of July when they fix the matter for hearing. You know, it is all right for Mr. Ravi Shankar Prasad or some other people in the opposition to do their politics on it. But as a responsible government which respects institutions, I think it is only fair that we respond to what the court wants us to respond to through our law officers on the 10th of July.
You're being very careful. You're being very careful today. Very, very careful. You may have your reasons for doing so. But now I want to go back to Karnataka because we are going to discuss the issue of the Supreme Court when we have discussed and we'll debate the Supreme Court Colgate cover-up in some time. My question here is this. To our panel, what do you make of Manish Tiwari's, giving a fair amount of credit to the Karnataka result to Rahul Gandhi? Do you think this talk of UPA 3 under Rahul Gandhi is now becoming more solid? Lord Meghnad Desai, and to any of our panelists, would you like to come in on that?
I have said all through the morning that this is Rahul Gandhi's first success, or the first success that can be attributed to Rahul Gandhi with or without objective logic. And I think Congress will obviously take it. They need a good news story. Karnataka is a good news story in which Rahul Gandhi played a visible part.
True.
And therefore, right now there is a vacuum at the top because of what's happened to in the Supreme Court. So they will grab Rahul Gandhi's good luck while they can.
Vinod Mehta.
Adnab, whatever credit you might want to give Rahul Gandhi for the Karnataka election, and I think some credit is possibly due. I think anybody who follows politics in India with any kind of independence will conclude that the victory in Karnataka was handed on a platter to the Congress.
Handed on a platter?
To the Congress by and large. And on a normal day, you could say 50-50. They won Karnataka and they got hammering in the Supreme Court. But the pronouncements of the Supreme Court, whichever way you look at them, you look at them at top, bottom, this, that, you can do whatever you like to them. They are an indictment not just of individual ministers. They point the finger right to the top. So, for the Congress, the Prime Minister's office and the Prime Minister himself has been squarely indicted by the Supreme Court.
So you think that that's taken off the sheen of the Karnataka victory?
Absolutely.
Okay, taken off the sheen.
You can't have, 1 minute, just one line. See, the Karnataka election is one thing. If you have a government in which there's a question mark against the Prime Minister's integrity, professionalism, probity, what kind of government are you going to have for the next 7, 8? You can carry on. You can
Manish Tiwari has raised his hand out there. Manish Tiwari has raised his hand out there. Vinod Mehta, I think he heard you there. Yes, do respond to Mr. Mehta.
I think with all due respects to Mr. Vinod Mehta, his observations are completely erroneous and totally off the charts. If you read the Supreme Court order, there is no indictment of the government, much less the Prime Minister. The Supreme Court has given certain directions. At the bar of the court, they may have asked for certain clarifications, and we would address the court accordingly. But to extrapolate from that and say that there's been an indictment of the government or of the Prime Minister, I'm sorry, Mr. Vinod Mehta, with all due respects to you, and you know that I personally respect you a hell of a lot, but this is completely bizarre, totally out of line and off the charts.
How can Joint Secretary can visit the CBI office?
Well, Mr. Vinod Mehta, it is a sub judice matter. There's a continuing mandamus. We will address the court. How can you come to conclusions that there's been an indictment? Is there a single word of indictment in the order? How can you come to these completely, for the lack of a better word, bizarre conclusions? And you're such a senior, eminent, respected editor. I don't think you can prejudge issues in this manner.
Africa, one small point. I may have made a mistake with the word indictment, but there is very strong criticism of the Prime Minister's office and the Coal Ministry's office, that whatever language you use, you can't get away from the fact that the Supreme Court has put the ball back in the Prime Minister's office to explain how various things happened. And that, if you have a democracy in which the Prime Minister, question mark, people
Again,
are asking, how are you going to run the government?
Mr. Manish Tiwari, at the beginning of the program,
allow me, Navika, to respond to that. Allow me, Navika, for a moment to respond to that. You know, Mr. Vinod Mehta, raises certain legitimate questions. But Mr. Vinod Mehta, as an editor, also knows that it is incumbent upon the government to address the court and satisfy the court. Don't you think it is fair for you to grant us that prerogative that if at all the court has made some observations, they have given certain directions, we would respond to it. But why are you prejudging issues? And I think between indictment and criticism, if somebody understands the distinction, I'm sure Mr. Vinod Mehta does.
No, Mr. Tiwari, not prejudging it, but there is one part where, in my humble opinion, Mr. Tiwari, the court has already made up its mind. And that is the following, where the court says the heart of the report was changed on the suggestions of government officials. The court does not ask, was the heart of the report changed on the suggestions of government officials? It says the heart of the report was changed on the suggestions of government officials. In other words, this completely debunks the CBI's contention that the central theme of the report
those two
was
government officials
was not altered.
Those two government officials come from the Prime Minister's office and the Coal Ministry. The two officials come from the Prime Minister's office and the Coal Ministry.
Mr.
Navika, go ahead.
At the start of the program, you said that Karnataka was lost because of corruption charges against the BJP. But there seems to be a competitive corruption contest between the two sides. Today's observations of the court, you say, do not tantamount to any finger pointing at the government. The court has recorded, and that's the most important part, that the law minister saw the report and made substantial changes. That's the most key part of the observation of the order that has been given by the court. And allow me to finish, Mr. Tiwari. It also says, along with the two joint secretaries of the PMO and the Coal Ministry. Now, it encompasses the Law Minister, the two joint secretaries of the PMO and the Coal Ministry, whose advice were they working on. All that has been recorded by the court. Do you still think that there is any leg room for the government to argue to the contrary?
Navika, first of all, when you go to Karnataka, let's not forget, it is not only Karnataka. There was a campaign of calumny which was run against the chief ministerial candidate in Himachal Pradesh, Mr. Veerbhadra Singh. It came to a complete knot. In Uttarakhand, the entire developmental model of the Bharatiya Janata Party collapsed like a house of cards. And insofar as judicial proceedings and political processes are concerned, they are on parallel tracks. We went to the People's Court, the people gave a verdict in our favor and against the malgovernance of the Bharatiya Janata Party. Insofar as the judicial process is concerned, we have the greatest respect for the Supreme Court. We hold it in the highest esteem. But I think you need to grant us that liberty that if the court has fixed the matter on the 10th of July, on the other side of the vacation, we are allowed to address the court and satisfy it. So therefore, all I am saying is, please do not come to predetermined conclusions which tantamounts to prejudging the outcome of judicial proceedings.
Mr. Tiwari, let me be very direct with you on this. Is the government becoming brazen? Is there a sense that we will brazen this out? We will brazen it out. This issue is coming up again and again. I'd like to ask you directly, is there a sense?
Well, just to answer you directly, Mr. Arnab Goswami, over the past 9 years, we have been extremely sensitive on every question of malfeasance, indiscretion or alleged corruption. But that has to be juxtaposed with judicial processes and legal processes being allowed to play themselves out. And so therefore, excuse my saying so, I, as the Information and Broadcasting Minister, do not use this terminology, but let us not have parallel trials in this country, a media trial and a judicial process. You are free to comment on judicial proceedings, but I think there needs to be a certain amount of sobriety in the manner in which we do so.
Well, some issues have come out in the public domain, Mr. Tiwari, with the greatest of respect to you. I don't know how much sobriety there is in the railway minister's nephew, taking money from somebody else, allegedly for selling posts. I mean, there is a question of that as well, and the responsibility of an independent media is to continue to ask questions of accountability, and I'm sure that you respect that.
Mr. Goswami, you are absolutely correct. There is an investigation underway. The railway minister has welcomed that investigation. We absolutely do not grudge the media, the independent media, the rights they have under Article 19. In fact, if you juxtapose our conduct against the conduct of the NDA government, you would see as to how liberal and absolutely objective that we have been in dealing with the media. But let's also not forget, this is the same Supreme Court. This is the same Supreme Court which has given an ordinary individual the right to access constitutional court if he feels that his independence or his right to free trial is being threatened by a media trial. It's the same Supreme Court and a constitution bench of the court which has now given that liberty to an individual. So I think we need to balance the imperatives, and the court has very clearly said that when there's a conflict between Article 19 and Article 21, 21 has to prevail.
I'm absolutely sure, but it is also the same Supreme Court. It is the same Supreme Court which has asked what business does the Joint Secretary Cole and PMO have to go to the CBI office to peruse. One second. Are we looking? Fundamentally, the question I wanted to ask, which didn't get answered, is this. There is a sense that at some point, the UPA too is wishing to go in for an early election. It's not going to tell us, but it realizes that the Samajwadi Party support cannot be taken for granted. It feels it has been buoyed to some extent by the Karnataka results, and it's not sure about the next set of state elections. And presumably, Aarti Jairat, I want you in on this. Do you think, I don't expect Manish Tiwari to say so today, on the day of the Karnataka result, but do you...
Before you go to Aarti, let me respond to that.
You will reject it. I know you'll reject it. I know you'll reject it, Mr. Tiwari.
Can I just...
Yeah, Arnav, I think,
just hear Aarti Jairat, please.
If you read the subtext and all that Manish Tiwari has been saying, I think there are very clear indications of what the Congress strategy is going to be. Number one, use the Karnataka victory to begin soft projection of Rahul Gandhi by attributing the victory to him. Number two, take shelter behind technicalities to protect your ministers, the two ministers who are in trouble, to protect your prime minister, and wait, and you keep postponing it till you're talking now about July 10th.
As far as you can.
Number three, push through your so-called pro-poor measures like the food security bill, the land acquisition bill, through an ordinance.
To neutralize the various gates.
And to protect yourselves against a possible pullout by the Samajwadi Party or, some eventuality, or, your own compulsion to go in for early election because your government's going to collapse under its own contradictions. So I think these three things are fairly clearly coming out.
Yeah, well, surely it is Meghnad Desai. I wanted to add something.
I just want to add one thing. I think Manish Tiwari will make a superb law minister when Ashwini Kumar is gone.
Well, that's a nice backhanded
I'm very happy doing the job. I am Lord Meghnad Desai. So therefore, please do not be under any misconception that I'm looking for a change of job.
Ravi Shankar Prasad, please, wants to come in. I'm glad to see smiles on the day of an election on both sides, and I'm happy today even the losing side is smiling. Yes, Ravi Shankar Prasad, please.
First of all, I always smile, even if we lose politically, substantively. First of all, Arnav, today my understanding of Constitution on the rights of media, Article 19 and 21, has become fairly enriched. And I'm going to revisit my own understanding of these postulates. I'll surely go by that. But you asked a very, very important question. And what was that question? Will the government brazen it out? Why even lightweight political leaders who are ministers are not being spared? Why? The reason is very simple. Once it is done, the Prime Minister comes directly under line of fire. That is the reason. Arnav, with some little experience of governance, let me ask a question. Would a Joint Secretary call a meeting of CBI officials investigating a sensitive case without the clear mandate of the Prime Minister? or secretary of the Prime Minister? Would a joint secretary of coal even venture to make alteration in status report without the authorization of the coal minister? Would the law minister call a meeting without any authorization from some higher ups? Therefore, Dr. Manmohan Singh is trying to brazen out, in spite of these stinging observations and also orders which you read, substantial changes by the law minister. Because if law minister is removed, then Dr. Manmohan Singh comes in the line of fire. If Mr. Bansal is removed, ultimately the same yardstick shall be applied.